Hello, everybody. This is Mr. Goddard wearing my favorite skin with Abraham Lincoln, and I want to welcome you to the 17th module, the second to the last module of the school year. So, with that, let's get started with this week's activities. So, this week you got a couple things going on. First thing is we're going to dive deep into Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, and we're going to see what it was all about. And was this an attempt to win the war, or was this really made out of sympathy for the slaves? So at the end of this short video, you'll know the answer to that. Then we're going to dive into your last document analysis. You're going to take a look at the turning point of the war, and that is Gettysburg, and you're going to try to figure out why it was the turning point. And then you're going to post that solution in your last discussion of the school year. So with that, let's get started with some more killing and destruction. On September 17th, 1862, the Battle of Antietam becomes the bloodiest day in American history. Thousands of men fighting either to save the Union or fighting for the right of self-determination, they will come to grips with themselves and the horrors of war at the Battle of Antietam. So if you take a look at this battle map, we can see how it all started. You'll notice that Washington, D.C. right here in the center, and Robert E. Lee has been pretty successful. He hasn't really lost a major battle, and he knows that he can't attack D.C. straight by going north, so he decides to go around. And as he goes around in the state of Maryland, he runs into thousands of Union soldiers at a place called Antietam, just outside the town of Sharpsburg. Now, for this purpose, I want to show you a quick little video. I had a chance to visit the Battle of Antietam along with a couple friends, and we're going to tell you the story of the Battle of Antietam in this short little video.
His truth is marching on.
Fire. 2 years into the Civil War, the Union had not won a single battle. I'm standing here in Antietam, just outside of Sharpsburg in the state of Maryland. September 17, 1863, Lee and McClellan engaged their armies in one of the bloodiest battles of the Civil War. It's also a battle that most people consider to be the most important, with the exception of Gettysburg. If you take a look to my left, on this hill here is where Lee had his troops positioned. On my right, the Union troops under McClellan came in. Before September 17th was done, over 21,000 combined casualties from both sides. When this battle is over, as you will see, the Confederates will have to retreat. Lincoln, as you will soon discover, will make a very important political move before the year is over.
I have read a fiery gospel written, burnished rows of steel.
Go.
In 1862, the Battle of Antietam was the first time that the Southern forces had pushed into Northern territory. Located behind me is where the current Confederate forces were going to be located, directly next to what is the Dunkard Church. The Dunkard Church was the only church in the area. This reproduction of the Dunkard Church shows where the people got together to worship God in their way, Maryland being a free religious state. The Northern Army on the other side, the Confederates, and Dunkard Church in the middle of this famous first.
Hi guys, it's these cornfields in the rough hilly terrain that made it tough for the soldiers to see where they were coming from. So what the Confederate soldiers waited for was watching for the flags of the Union soldiers coming through the corn. As they stepped out of the cornfields, they were mowed down by the Confederate soldiers. Here I walk on sunken road, eroded from years and years of farmers using this to travel their grain along it. As I mentioned earlier, this was a tough area to fight because of the hilly conditions. Not only coming out of the cornfields, but hiding or using the top of the hills as a place to shoot from. The Confederates originally hid down in this sunken road, waiting for the Union troops to come over. And as they would pluck them off the top of the hill. As they retreated and regrouped and took their position on top of the hill, This sunken road now became known as Bloody Lane, as thousands of soldiers were killed right here. It is said that the blood was up to your knees. Bodies filled this whole sunken road.
This is the lower bridge of Antietam, better known as Burnside's Bridge. Burnside's Bridge named after General Burnside. The Northern troops are held at bay here by just a few hundred Georgia riflemen. After Burnside finally takes his bridge, he is at a key point. He can cut off Lee's way of exit. Luckily, at that time, Lee is reinforced and has the opportunity to back out of Antietam. The Battle of Antietam, very costly, with well over 21,000 dead. But it is a key victory for the North.
More men were killed at Antietam than in any other battle in the Civil War during one single day. 21,000 people lost their lives. The losses were so great that Lee was forced to retreat. His retreat gave the Union the victory. This victory is the victory Lincoln was waiting for to make his famous Emancipation Proclamation, to add a new purpose to the war. So the 21,000 people that lost their lives here died for more than country alone, and now we have a new purpose to the war. Besides that, Great Britain postponed recognizing the Confederate States of America, as did France. Napoleon III refused to be the first to recognize this country. So the Confederacy is going to get no more help. But Lincoln will fire McClellan because he let Lee escape to the countryside, even though he had 35,000 troops held in reserve. The Battle of Antietam. Now the Union had won its battle.
Is true.
Sorry about that. Let's go to the next slide if we could. There we go. So just a couple of pictures. You've got the Dunker Church that you saw there. That's where the Confederates were at. And then you had a good friend of mine, Ted Googert, in what was called Sunken Road, but became known as Bloody Lane. And they said that the bloodshed was so bad at this midday part of the battle that this trench was filled knee-high with blood from the poor soldiers that lost their lives. And then the third campaign of this battle was at Burnside Bridge, the southern bridge, where Lee was allowed to escape. And the Union had 35,000 soldiers, but McClellan decided not to pursue him, and Lee got away, and the war is going to last another 2 years. But this was the first victory that Lincoln can claim that the Union had won. And as this war was costing a lot in terms of lives, time, loss of money for businesses, and of course it looked like there was no chance for the Union to actually win this thing quickly, Lincoln was looking for a new way to end the war. And in doing so, he gradually thought that maybe he should add another purpose to the war. And he decided to end slavery as well with his fabled Emancipation Proclamation, his freedom statement, on January 1st, 1863. Now, so we have the beginning of the end, right? That's what emancipation means. It means freedom. And we're talking about a proclamation that's just making sure that everybody knows. Now, let's talk a little bit, and I hate to sound like Captain Obvious, but it's very important for you to understand who it actually freed. And it freed the slaves, but not all the slaves. It freed the slaves in the rebel states. Let me explain a little bit. Those are the Confederate states. The states that rebelled, Lincoln freed their slaves. Now, the problem was the Southerners did not consider them to be, or did not consider Lincoln to be their president. So, to explain this a little bit better, let's take a look at who it did not free. This is a map you guys looked at 2 modules ago, and you might remember the border states. These are the Union slave states. You see, Lincoln did not free a single slave that he had the authority to free. Slavery will remain in effect in the border states, those Union slave states. So, in other words, Lincoln freed the slaves in the places where he did not have the authority to free the slaves. He could have freed the slaves in the Union slave states, but he was afraid that if he freed their slaves, that they would join the Confederacy. So slavery remained in effect. So, to put it more plainly, with the Emancipation Proclamation, Lincoln did not free a single slave in any of the areas where he actually had the authority to do it. Let that sink in for a second. He could have freed slaves in the border states, but he didn't. He was no longer recognized as the president of the Confederate States, and that's whose slaves he freed. So, most people on the surface, they believe that Lincoln made this out of sympathy for the slaves. And I just want to beg the question here. If Lincoln made this out of sympathy for the slaves, think about this. What do the Confederates get to keep if they surrender? You got it? If the Confederates surrender, they're no longer in rebellion. And if they're no longer in rebellion, they get to keep their slaves. This becomes particularly important towards the end of the war, as it looks like Lincoln and the Union armies are going to win. Because the Emancipation Proclamation only freed the slaves in the rebel states. So if the Confederates lose without a constitutional amendment abolishing slavery, then when they come back to the Union, they get to keep their slaves. Let that sink in a little bit. 4 years, 620,000 people died, and we're right back where we were with the slavery issue before all of this? So it gets very, very important for Lincoln and the Union to pass the 13th Amendment before the end of the Civil War so that this war will keep the Union together and also end the horrible institution of slavery. So then, why did Lincoln make the proclamation? Again, Lincoln's goal for this entire war was to keep the country together. He said, if I could keep the country together by not freeing any slaves, then I'm not going to free any slaves. He said, if I could keep the country together by freeing all the slaves, then I'm going to free all the slaves. He also said, if I could keep the country together by freeing some slaves and not freeing others, then that's what I would do. And that's what he did. The whole point of the Emancipation Proclamation was to further weaken the South to save the Union. So he thought this would reunite the country. A lot of people were against the war. And if now the war is being fought to end slavery, if you're against the war that's being fought to end slavery, then you are for slavery. That does not look good, people. Right? Plus, this is going to weaken the Confederates. Slave labor was still doing a lot of the manual labor. If these slaves are now free and working for the North, the South's going to get further weak. Also, the South is not going to get support from Europe because now this war is fought to end slavery, and if England starts trading with the Southerners, then they are going to go down in history as supporting slavery, and they're not going to do that. And now these freed slaves can work in the Union. So now we have a new purpose to the war. Not only is this war being fought to save the country, to save the Union and the Constitution, but now it's being fought to end slavery. And now there's a new purpose to the war, and more people are going to be in support of Lincoln's war because it's not just to save the Union, it's to end the horrible institution of slavery. So with that, take a look at all the people on the battlefront. Look at the size of these battles. You guys saw some in the last modules, like the Battle of Antietam with 21,000. These battles are getting pretty bad. And Lincoln is trying to squeeze the South. He's come up with the Anaconda Plan, where he's blockading the South with his Navy so nothing gets in and out. And he's forcing some incredible shortages on the South. If you take a look at this painting, you can see that something's very wrong with this painting. Notice the cannon. They're made out of trees. And these guys down here, these Confederate soldiers, are hoping that this boat that's offshore thinks these are cannon, otherwise they'll land and slaughter these guys. But this is one example of how things were in such short supply because of Lincoln's Anaconda Plan. Take a look at these things. Look at the prices in the North compared to prices in the South. Look at that. You couldn't even buy shoes, and one piece of paper was $1 a piece, and a gallon of milk was $10. And again, this is adjusted for inflation. So Southern shorteners were incredible, and the Southern soldiers didn't have anything. Notice they couldn't even get shoes. Now, in the summer of 1863, Lee is once again going to try to attack the North. And he's going to go further to the east, further to the west and further north. And when he gets up into Pennsylvania, he hears about a supply of shoes in a crossroads town called Gettysburg. Here's the town of Gettysburg, and notice where all these roads come into. This was an ideal place for the Union soldiers to keep their supplies. And Lee heard about a supply of shoes in the town of Gettysburg. So the story goes, several thousand sore-footed Confederate soldiers marched into Gettysburg looking for shoes. And they're going to find them. Unfortunately, they're still being worn by about 95,000 Union soldiers. The battle that erupts is going to be one of the bloodiest and most vicious and most critical turning points of the Civil War. After 2 days of fighting, the troops are going to be engaged on a battlefield, and at the end of this war, with the Union forcing the South to defeat, it's going to really turn things around. Now, I want you to think about it. Can you think of an event in your life where things are different after than they were before? Something that totally changed? I'm sure you do. It could be starting a new school like CVA. It could be moving to a new city. It could be maybe you lost somebody that was precious to you, or maybe you had an addition to your family. Maybe your parents had another son or daughter, and you've got a sibling. Things are definitely different, right? That's called a turning point, and you're going to have many of these things in your life. Now, for the Civil War, the turning point of the war was Gettysburg, because before Gettysburg, the Union was losing and losing very badly. But after Gettysburg, things start to turn around. So for your last critical thinking and communicating activity for this particular school year, you're going to turn back to the online DBQ and look at this question. Why was the Battle of Gettysburg the turning point of the war? You'll be reading a background essay and 4 documents, and you'll be posting your claim in an online discussion. And that's what we're going to be doing during Module 17, and that gives you a preview of the week ahead. So based on what you heard on this 17-minute video, answer the one question on 17.1, then turn to the online DBQ, analyze 4 documents, revise and read the background essay, and then post your opinion on the discussion board. And that will close out our last full unit in the online American experience. All right, my friends, this is Mr. Gaudette, or might I say Mr. Lincoln, signing out. I'll see you guys all later. Have a great week, and if you have any questions, I'm only an email away.